Well, good morning everyone. This is George Beiruthi from FS Securities, giving you the overnight market update for Tuesday morning, the 12th of August. First of all, who we are. We're a stockbroking firm located on the Gold Coast in Queensland, Australia, and I intend to give you a bit more information about the company later in this presentation. But let me start with the disclaimer. Everything I say here is for general information only and general advice. And before you take any action, please contact your professional advisor or talk to us directly. And you can get a copy of this disclaimer upon request. All you have to do is call the office. We start with what we offer our subscribers on the market report. We continue with our options series. This is now part 11. Everything you need to know about options happen to be in those parts, but it's still basic information. And 2 weeks ago we finished the series on futures contract. So if you really want to receive or at least review the series on options or the futures contract, all you have to do is go to the website and subscribe on a 15-day free trial. Let me start with what happened overnight. Well, we start with the Dow Jones. As you can see on the screen, that the US stocks ended higher for a second session on hopes of easing tensions between the Ukraine and Russia. The Dow Jones Industrial Average rose 16 points or 0.1% to 16,569. The broader S&P 500 also rose to the extent of 0.3% to 1,936. In Europe, the StockX 50 index that comprises several European major markets rose by 1.4% and finished at 3,048. In London, the FTSE 100 index was up by 1% at 6,633. In Japan, the Nikkei index rose by 2.4% at 15,130, wiping out most of the losses it incurred the day before. In China, the Shanghai index continued the trend and rose 1.5% to 2,365. So you can see most markets in Europe, in Asia and the United States were actually up. On the commodities, gold futures contract a short time ago was trading at 1,308 US per ounce, and that is steady from this time yesterday. Silver closed this morning at $20.10, up 13 cents. Crude oil at 98.10 US a barrel, up 40 cents. And copper, the world's economic barometer, this morning was at 317 cents per pound, and that is steady. Iron ore, which is important for our miners such as BHP, Rio, Atlas Iron and Fortescue, fell 0.4% at 95.3 US a ton. On the currencies, the Aussie dollar was giving you 92.6 US cents, 94.7 Japanese yen, 69.2 euro cents and 55.2 British pence. And these of course are intrabank rates. On our market yesterday, the benchmark ASX 200 index closed up 21 points or 0.4% at 5,457. Australian equities snapped a 6-day losing streak as investors followed gains in the United States on receding concerns about the Ukraine and clarity on US airstrikes in Iraq. On the local news today, and you can see from the next screen, we offer you a list of announcements, and these announcements happen to be available to you because what we believe, certain announcement can affect the market. And as far as what we have here in Australia, we have the Q2, that's quarter 2 house prices, and we also have the NAB July business condition confidence data. And tonight in the United States, we have the July small business optimism survey data. So all these data happen to be, or these announcements happen to be available to you as we present them to you on our market report. We also give you a lot of data. You can see now on the screen we have the volume over the last 15 days. You can see that the volume was actually lower yesterday, and we've had a good day because, as you can see, that as far as advances and declines, out of the last 8 days, you can see that at least 5 days were actually more on the declining side. Yesterday was good because 43% of all the shares that were traded were actually on the upside. So that helps you to see the trend in the market over 15 days. Then we give you the gainers in dollars and in percentage as well. You can see that Iron Ore Holdings, which by the way was owned by Kerry Stokes, he actually sold it to BC Iron, and the price went up by 40%. Alcoa was up nearly 9%, and you can see the list of all the companies that rose, obviously from 40% all the way down to 0.5%, which is of course the CBA at the bottom, RIA at the bottom as well, 0.6%. Now, most active by volume, Telstra is always on the top. There is a lot of shares traded in Telstra every single day. However, it was up by just 0.3%. Fortescue Metal was down 0.2% with high volume. And you've got other companies. We only look at the companies above 10 cents, which we believe are more important. Then we give you information about how all the sectors performed. You can see there are only two red sectors, two red painted sectors. Gold was down 10%. That's 10%, 2.4%. And on the day range, it was actually finished 10% above the bottom. So it tells you that it's actually finished at the lower end of the spectrum of the trading day. 2.4% drop, and the second worst was actually the small ordinaries, which is down 0.2%. The best performing sector going down the list is real estate, IT, as well as the utilities. So again, you can actually, from this table, you can pick the sectors that have performed better on the day. On the weekend, we give you a table that shows you what happened over 2 weeks in America, in the foreign exchange, and in commodities, and in the next one that you will see shortly on the Australian market. So you can see that despite all the kerfuffle last week, the Dow Jones managed to rise by 0.4%. Yes, on Friday it recovered 185 points, but nevertheless, previously we've seen some bad days, but overall, over the full day, it was actually up 0.4%. Gold, on the other hand, was down 1.2% last week. However, when you combine the 2 weeks together, it was only down by 0.2%. You can see the rest of the commodities, the soft commodities, the grains, etc. It really tells you how each commodity is performing. Then we also show you the foreign exchange. You can see that the US dollar gained strength of about 0.4% over the last 2 weeks. What about our Aussie battler? It was down 1.3% over 2 weeks. Then we also give you the ratio of put to call options. We like to see this ratio below 1 because that means more calls have been traded than puts, which could be, in an indirect way, a good sign for a bullish trend, or at least it gauges the sentiment of traders. The VIX, which is the fear gadget, at one stage 2 weeks ago was 17 points and it dropped. However, over the last 2 weeks it was up by 24%. Nevertheless, anything below 20 points or 25 points seems to still be a safe gauge. Then we go on to the Australian market. You can see the last 2 weeks. At the end of the weekend, we see that most sectors were actually on the declining except gold. Gold was up by 4% last week, 3.5% over 2 weeks. The worst performing sector going down that list here on the left hand side of this table, we look for large numbers. Okay, we've got the consumer discretionary down 3%. The financials were down 3.4%. Information technology 3.8%, and the property was down 3.5%. On the other side, on the right hand side, you see how the various top companies performed. Over the last 2 weeks, we can see that Newcrest Mines was up by 4.5%. Rio Tinto, with some good results released last week, was up 2.1%, and Bramble was also up by 2%. The worst performers over the last 2 weeks, we have Leighton Holdings 7.5%. We go down the list and we see that Macquarie Group was down by 5%, and QBE was the worst performer with down 9.4%. So again, this table gives you an overview about how each stock, how the sectors, how the American market have performed over 2 weeks. At least it consolidates your understanding of the market. Alright, now, well, to finish off, who I am the director here at FS Securities with a lot of years experience and some academic qualification behind me. And of course, my ambition at the moment is to give my clients and prospective clients all the knowledge that I've gained over this time. How to reach us? Well, there is our phone number, 61 for Australia, 7 for Brisbane, 56304141. My mobile number is available for you to contact me 7 days a week. You have my email address as well as the website. And I encourage you to join us on a 15-day free trial on our website, so you can see all the recommendations, all the scans that we do for you, all the results that we perform for our clients, the educations, the tutorials, the editorials, and there is a lot of information for you to absorb and to learn from if you wish. Now, finally, we're a stockbroking firm here on the Gold Coast. We trade equities, options, commodities, foreign exchange. We also provide some very attractive interest rate on your investment. We have a managed investment funds, 7% return over 1 year, interest paid monthly, or 9% paid monthly for 3-year investment. Alright, well, that's all from us here at FS Securities. Have a happy trading day, and I'll talk to you again at 1:15 this afternoon, where I'll actually tell you what happened during the day on our market.